Ladies and gentlemen, saints and soldiers, I came to tell you something that might shock your spirit, but will liberate your soul. You don't have to throw a punch to win the battle. You don't have to cuss 'em out to claim the victory. You don't have to stoop to their level to rise to yours. The greatest victories are won without swinging a sword, because the fight, the real fight, is not in the flesh, it's in the spirit, it's in the mind. It's in the heart. Oh yes, see, when you learn how to kill your enemy without fighting, you're stepping into the divine. You're no longer reacting out of pain. You're responding out of purpose. Let me tell you something. When your enemy comes at you with lies, you come back with truth. When they throw shade, you shine light. When they try to trap you with hate, you bury them with grace. You don't win by destroying their name. You win by building your character. You don't win by shouting louder. You win by standing still and letting God be God. See, some of y'all are spending energy shadow boxing with people who are already beneath your assignment. You are using your strength to swing at what God has already said he will handle. The word says, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. It doesn't say fight. It doesn't say chase them down. It says stand and let God work. You want to kill your enemy, kill them, with kindness. You want to win the war, win it, by refusing to wage it. Because the moment you stop feeding the drama, it starves. The moment you stop responding to hate, it dies. The moment you bless what tried to curse you, the power shifts in your favor. You don't need revenge. What you need is revelation. You don't need to clap back. You need to level up. Let God turn your enemies into your footstool. Let your silence scream louder than their noise. Let your elevation be the eulogy of their attack. You want to kill your enemy without fighting. Then stop giving them the fight they came for. And give them the victory they never saw coming. You see, we live in a world that teaches us to fight every battle with our fists clenched and our mouths wide open. From childhood we are taught, don't let anybody play with you, stand your ground, hit back harder. And while there's a time for courage and a time for boldness, too many of us are exhausting ourselves fighting battles that were never ours to fight. We've confused strength with rage. We've mistaken power for aggression. And we've forgotten that some of the most significant wars are won, not on the battlefield, but in the quiet corners of the spirit. There is a kind of warfare that doesn't make the headlines. It doesn't show up in blood or bruises, but it leaves scars on the soul. It's the war that plays out in your mind when you're alone. The war between your better self and your broken self. The war between who you're called to be and what they said about you. The war between trusting God and taking matters into your own hands. That's where the real fight lies, and here's what you must understand. Your enemy is not always the one who stands in front of you. Sometimes your enemy is the lie that was planted inside you. It's the bitterness that grew after betrayal. It's the pride that won't let you forgive. It's the pain that wants to become your personality. And when you come to know this truth, you begin to realize you cannot kill your enemy with fists. You cannot destroy a spiritual enemy with a physical reaction. The weapons you need don't come from your mouth or your hands. They come from your spirit, from your ability to stand still when everything in you wants to run wild, from your capacity to show love when hate feels more comfortable, from your decision to bless what tried to curse you. That is not weakness. That is power under control. That is strength refined by wisdom. Too often, we are shadow-boxing ghosts, bunching at people, attacking situations, cursing circumstances, when in reality, it's the enemy behind the curtain pulling the strings. That coworker that keeps testing your peace. That's not just about them. That's about the spirit of discouragement trying to derail your purpose. That family member who knows how to push your buttons every holiday. That's not just about dysfunction. That's a test of how deep your healing has really gone. That setback you just face, losing the job, the relationship, the opportunity, it's not just a natural failure. Sometimes it's the battlefield God allows so he can train your hands to war in prayer, not in pettiness. What's most dangerous is how easily we can be baited into fighting on the wrong battlefield. The moment someone offends us, we're ready to clap back. We want to expose them, embarrass them, make sure they feel the pain they caused us. But what does that win you? A few moments of satisfaction, maybe, a petty victory. But meanwhile, you've abandoned your real assignment just to entertain a temporary insult. If the enemy can't destroy your destiny, he'll distract you from it. And one of the quickest ways to be distracted is to be offended, because offense keeps you in your feelings. Offense clouds your vision. Offense makes you think the person is the problem when in truth, it's the spirit behind the problem that needs to be dealt with. And you can't rebuke a demon you enjoy entertaining. You can't claim victory while nursing a grudge. You can't cast down strongholds if your pride is still standing tall. The moment you decide to fight this war differently, everything changes. When you begin to understand that silence can speak louder than shouting, that prayer can go further than a punch, that forgiveness can break chains more than revenge ever could, then you step into a power that can't be manipulated. Because now you're not just reacting, you're reigning. You've got to learn how to fight without fighting, not with weapons that wound, but with wisdom that wins. When you walk in wisdom, you don't lower yourself just to prove a point. You rise above to protect your peace. You don't match their energy. You set the tone. You don't feed the foolishness. You frustrate it with your calm. Nothing confuses the enemy more than someone who refuses to engage on his terms. Some of you are wondering why the same attacks keep circling back. The same types of people, the same drama, the same triggers. Could it be that you're still trying to fight a spiritual enemy with emotional responses? Could it be that you're swinging at symptoms and never dealing with the source? You don't overcome jealousy with gossip. You overcome it with excellence. You don't overcome betrayal with revenge. You overcome it by thriving. You don't beat bitterness by trying to hurt who hurt you. You beat it by healing so thoroughly they no longer have power over your name, your narrative, or your next chapter. Let me tell you, there's a reason some of your enemies are so loud. Because they sense something rising in you. They see that you're stepping into a season where their games won't work anymore. They're terrified of your silence. They're panicking at your peace, because they know what happens when you stop fighting like them and start standing like him. God never called you to fight every battle. Some battles are won by walking away. Some victories come through worship, not warfare. There are moments when God will say, "Put your sword down. I've already gone before you." But you'll miss that moment if you're too busy trying to prove a point or protect your ego. Some of the best things you'll ever do for your future are the fights you walk away from today. Every time you choose grace over gossip, you win. Every time you choose purpose over pettiness, you gain ground. Every time you decide to pray instead of panic, you rise. That's how you kill what came to kill you. Without ever lifting a hand, you kill it by refusing to let it control your thoughts. You kill it by not letting it rewrite your character. You kill it by refusing to give it one more second of your energy. This isn't a call to weakness. This is a call to divine warfare. A call to level up how you fight, how you respond, how you win. Because when you learn to war in the spirit, the enemy can't predict your moves. When you start trusting God to handle your battles, you disarm everything that tried to take you down. The battle doesn't belong to you. It belongs to God. So stop swinging and start standing. Stop screaming and start surrendering. You don't need to fight in the flesh when you've already got victory in the spirit. The war is real, but the weapons are not carnal. And when you choose the higher road, you always reach higher ground. There is something dangerous about unchecked emotion, something fierce about a heart that reacts before it reflects, something wild about a soul that responds based on how it feels, not what it knows. You see, feelings are real, but they are not always right. Emotions are loud, but they are not always truthful. And if you are not careful, you will let temporary emotion sabotage permanent purpose. It's easy to react when you've been hurt. It's natural to strike back when you've been disrespected. It feels good to give someone a piece of your mind when they've mishandled your heart. But what happens after the high wears off? After the adrenaline fades? After you've said what couldn't be unsaid, done what can't be undone, some of the deepest regrets are born in the space between impulse and wisdom. That's where the enemy hides, right in that gap, right in the few seconds between the moment you're triggered and the moment you decide. He wants you to move too fast, to speak too soon, to clap back so quickly that you miss your cue, because when he can get you to act out of feeling, he's already robbed you of control. You're most vulnerable when you feel entitled to your emotions. Because pain will convince you that you're right even when you're reckless. Anger will make you bold but not wise. Bitterness will sound like discernment, but it's deception wearing a church hat. And pride will have you cutting down bridges God intended you to walk across. But there's a better way. There's a higher way. There's a way that doesn't silence your emotion but sanctifies it. A way that doesn't ignore your feelings but disciplines them. See, maturity isn't about becoming numb. It's about being able to carry fire and not burn down everything in your path. It's about choosing to wait one more moment before you respond, one more breath, one more prayer, because what you say in that moment can either open the door to your next level or close it shut for another season. You don't get destiny by living at the mercy of your moods. You don't get to divine purpose by letting your emotions run the show. If your feelings sit in the driver's seat, don't be surprised when you crash your calling. There are some things God will only release to people who have proven they can steward their soul, not control it, but steward it. Honor it, train it. That means there will be moments when your heart is on fire, but your mouth stays quiet. Moments when your thoughts are spinning, but your actions remain still. Moments when you could drag somebody through the dirt, but instead you choose to speak life. Not because you feel like it, but because purpose demands it. You don't always get to say what you want to say. You don't always get to do what feels good. Sometimes you've got to bite your tongue, clench your fist, and whisper to yourself, I'm not going to let this take me out of character. Because what's more important than being right is being righteous. What's more powerful than being loud is being led. You don't win battles by shouting louder. You win them by seeing clearer. Clarity will carry you through storms that emotion would drown you in. When you are clear about your assignment, your response changes. When you know who you are, everything doesn't deserve an answer. When you understand where you're going, you stop giving directions to people who are not on your path. You can't afford to waste words on people who don't speak your future. You can't afford to spend energy on reactions that don't move you forward. Some arguments are designed to detour you. Some offenses are planted to delay you. If the enemy can't destroy you, he'll provoke you. If he can't stop you, he'll irritate you enough to stop yourself. Don't fall for it. Just because they said it doesn't mean you have to answer it. Just because they did it doesn't mean you have to match it. Your power is not in your reaction. Your power is in your restraint. Sometimes strength looks like silence. Sometimes boldness looks like walking away. Sometimes victory looks like keeping your peace when you had every right to lose it. There's nothing weak about composure. There's nothing soft about discipline. That's real power. The kind of power that heaven recognizes. The kind of power that hell respects. The kind of power that breaks cycles and changes atmospheres. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. If every insult pulls you out of purpose, how will you ever complete the mission? If every offense knocks you off course, how will you ever reach the destination? You can't build legacy while constantly defending ego. Yes, you feel it. The sting, the shame, the betrayal, the anger, the disrespect, feel it. But don't be led by it. Let it teach you. Let it train you. Let it fuel your growth. But don't let it become your guide. Because if it leads you, it will limit you. There's a greater reward for those who can govern themselves. A deeper favor for those who have proven they can be trusted with tension. God will test your ability to remain steady in storms before he gives you the platform to calm them. He will watch how you handle offense in private before he grants you influence in public. Everybody wants elevation, but not everyone is willing to master restraint. Everybody wants the blessing, but few want the burden of managing emotion with wisdom. You can shout all day long, but if your heart is unruled, your house will be too. You can speak in tongues, but if your temper controls your tone, your testimony is at risk. It's not enough to know truth, you have to walk in it. You have to embody it when it's hard, when you're misunderstood, when they lie, when they leave, when it's not fair. You've got to decide, I will not forfeit my future just to satisfy my feelings in the moment. There's too much on the line. Too much destiny in your DNA. Too much legacy in your lungs. You don't have time to throw punches at shadows. You don't have energy to waste explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Let God defend you. Let favor speak louder than frustration. Let your fruit be your clapback. Let your focus be your revenge. Your presence in the room is already proof. You survived what was designed to break you. You endured what was meant to silence you. You kept showing up even when it would have been easier to disappear. Now it's time to mature beyond reaction, to live above the bait, to rise into the fullness of who you were created to be. That means responding out of identity, not insecurity, out of calling, not chaos, out of destiny, not drama, because when you do, your life will begin to echo heaven. Your words will become weapons of peace. Your stillness will become a shield, and your purpose, your God-ordained heaven, assigned destiny, dripping purpose, will speak louder than anything your emotions ever could. It is one thing to be hurt. It is another thing to be healed. But it is something altogether divine to be hurt and still choose not to hurt in return. That's not natural. That's not easy. That's not ordinary. That is spiritual. That is growth. That is power. There comes a moment in your journey when you are faced with the choice between what feels good in the moment and what's right in eternity. When you're standing between the fire of retaliation and the stillness of righteousness, and everything in you is screaming to even the score, but something deeper, something holy, is telling you to be quiet, to be still, to trust. That moment is sacred. That moment will define who you really are. People will wrong you. That's not a prophecy. It's a pattern. Someone will betray your trust. Someone will take advantage of your kindness. Someone will lie, disrespect, cheat, or slander. The wounds of this life are unavoidable, and when they come, your first instinct will often be to fight fire with fire, to respond in kind, to make them feel what they made you feel. It's a human instinct. It's wired into our survival. But we were not just called to survive. We were called to overcome. What separates the person who lives by impulse from the one who walks in purpose is not how they are treated, but how they choose to respond. Anybody can get even. That doesn't take strength. It takes a spark. It doesn't require wisdom. It requires a wound, but it takes something extraordinary to rise above, to walk away, to bless those who curse, to smile when slandered, to keep moving forward when everything in you wants to stop and settle the score. You see, there's a lie the world keeps feeding us, a lie that says you've got to clap back, that you've got to prove your worth by making them regret ever crossing you. That revenge is power. That revenge is justice. But the truth is, revenge is a trap. It drags you down to the same level as the one who hurt you. And while you're focused on payback, you miss the progress. While you're obsessed with who hurt you, you lose sight of who you're becoming. When you stoop to the level of your offender, you're no longer standing in your anointing. You're wearing their pain like a mask. You're carrying their dysfunction in your hands, and before you know it, you've allowed their mistake to mold your identity. But you were not created in their image. You were created in God's, and God is not in the business of petty vengeance. He's in the business of transformation. If you spend all your time trying to repay evil, you will forget that you were made for good. If you give your energy to proving them wrong, you'll have nothing left to pursue what's right. What's ahead of you is far too important to keep glancing back at what they did, what they said, how they hurt you. That pain had a purpose, but it does not deserve your future. There is a version of you that revenge will never meet. There is a destiny so high, so holy, so wrapped in favor that bitterness can't breathe in its atmosphere. There is a season ahead where you'll need every ounce of grace, patience, and strength you've got, and revenge will only drain what God needs you to preserve. Let me be clear. Choosing not to retaliate is not weakness. It's not silence. It's not surrender. It is divine strength. The ability to control your response is more powerful than the reaction itself. Real power is not proven by destruction. It is proven by discipline. You don't have to make a scene to make a statement. Sometimes your absence is louder than your anger. Sometimes your progress is the greatest punishment. Sometimes the most profound thing you can do to your enemy is flourish in front of them and not flinch. You don't need to shout your worth. They'll hear it in your walk. You don't need to scream your success. They'll see it in your fruit. When your character is rooted in truth, you don't have to convince anybody. You don't have to defend what God has already approved. You don't have to chase after vindication when God has already said, "Vengeance is mine." That's his territory, not yours. You weren't designed to carry the weight of revenge. It will rot your joy, rob your peace, and contaminate your calling. And here's what's wild. Sometimes God will bless you in front of the very ones who tried to bury you. Not so you can gloat, but so you can show what grace looks like. Sometimes he will keep your table in the presence of your enemies, not to feed your ego, but to show the power of restraint. Can you be blessed without becoming arrogant? Can you be favored and still forgive? Can you walk through the fire, come out refined, and not set another blaze behind you? That's real growth. That's what separates people who are chasing attention from those who are carrying anointing. Because when you're truly walking in destiny, you no longer care about being right. You care about being whole. You don't care about who gets credit. You care about keeping your crown. There's a harvest waiting for you that cannot grow in the soil of bitterness. You've got to dig it out. Uproot the need to get even. Pull out the pride. Lay down the scoreboard. Let the Lord heal what they broke. Let him restore what they stole. Let him promote you without the poison of payback in your spirit. And while you're waiting, don't let the enemy trick you into thinking you're doing nothing. Restraint is not inactivity. It is preparation. God is preparing you to carry more, to handle bigger battles, to speak to higher rooms, to influence more people, and he cannot elevate someone who's still clinging to the desire to tear others down. Let them talk. Let them mock. Let them move how they move. You move with grace. You move with excellence. You move with quiet strength and unwavering peace, because the light that is on you is greater than the darkness that came against you. And if you keep your character, that light will guide you straight into victory. Not everyone who attacks you is your enemy. Sometimes they're just broken people projecting their pain, and if you're not careful, you'll let their wound infect your walk. But you're better than that. You're wiser now. You've seen too much. You've survived too much. You've grown too much to go back to who you were just to get revenge on someone who doesn't know who you're becoming. Keep building. Keep rising. Keep shining. Let your life be the loudest response. Let your peace be your power. Let your integrity echo louder than any insult. And remember, those who walk in the light do not need to shout at the shadows. You were not called to get even. You were called to stand out. And the moment you stop trying to make others pay and start walking fully in who you are, that's the moment you become unstoppable. There comes a moment in your life when you have to stop swinging wildly in your own strength and start surrendering to the strength that has never known defeat. There comes a moment when you must stop exhausting yourself trying to fix, fight, and figure everything out, and instead lift your hands, not in surrender to the enemy, but in surrender to the one who has already conquered it all. That moment comes not when you are strong, but when you are tired, when you've tried everything, when the fight has drained the fight out of you. And that's exactly where God does his best work. Not in your perfection, but in your limitation. You were never meant to fight every battle alone. You were never designed to carry every weight, argue every case, or win every war with your own strategy. Some of the battles you're facing were never yours to begin with. They were never your assignment, never your burden. You only picked them up because you thought you had to defend yourself, protect your name, or prove your point. But when you finally realize that the greatest victories are won not by force, but by faith, you will stop stepping into battles uninvited and start stepping aside for the one who has never lost. There is something holy about restraint. There is something divine about knowing when not to act, not because you're afraid, not because you're unsure, but because you're so certain of who your defender is that you refuse to get your hands dirty in a fight that has already been decided in heaven. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's not passivity. That's power under control. That's the confidence of someone who knows that the same God who parted the Red Sea is still parting ways today. Think about it. The children of Israel stood trapped between the sea and the sword. Pharaoh behind them, death in front of them. No escape, no solution, no path forward. And yet, right there in the most hopeless place imaginable, God told them something that sounds completely illogical. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. In other words, don't run, don't react, don't try to fix this. Just stand still, let me fight for you. And when they obeyed, what looked like the end became the beginning. The sea split, the way was made. The impossible turned into a highway of deliverance, and all they had to do was trust the one who never fails. God is still giving that same command today. Not to freeze in fear, not to collapse in despair, but to stand firm in faith, to stop striving and start trusting, to stop panicking and start believing. Because if God brought you to it, He has already made a way through it. The problem is, we're too busy fighting for control to recognize the way of escape. You see, God doesn't need your chaos. He doesn't need your worry, your panic, your manipulation. He doesn't require your frantic plans or your sleepless nights. He only requires your faith, because faith is what moves heaven. Faith is what stirs the hand of God. Faith is what shuts the mouths of lions, quenches the fire of the furnace, and collapses the walls of Jericho. And when you truly trust that He is for you, you will stop reacting to every threat and start resting in every promise. That doesn't mean the enemy won't come. It doesn't mean the storm won't rage or the weapons won't form. But when your confidence is in the God who controls the winds, you stop fearing the waves. You stop wasting energy trying to silence your enemies when you know that God has already silenced their authority. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't matter when you know God has already validated your purpose. You stop swinging at shadows when you know the light is on your side. This kind of surrender is not easy. It requires faith that defies logic. It requires a maturity that trusts the process even when it hurts. It requires humility to admit that you don't have all the answers, and courage to let go of what you cannot control. But what you give up in control, you gain in peace, and what you give up in fear, you gain in power. Because the minute you let go of the fight, God steps in with fire. Let Him fight for you in the courtrooms of injustice. Let Him fight for you in the quiet corners of betrayal. Let Him fight for you in the war zones of the mind, where anxiety and depression try to steal your voice. Let Him fight for you in the workplace where your excellence is ignored and your loyalty is taken for granted. Let Him fight for you in the relationships that tried to break you, in the diagnoses that tried to define you, in the dry seasons that tried to bury you. When you stop striving, you start surviving, and not just surviving, you begin to thrive. Because you realize that the battle was never about the people who opposed you. It was about the God who covers you. The enemy wanted your attention, your fear, your energy, your distraction. But God wants your focus, your praise, your surrender, your trust. When you trust God to fight for you, you no longer walk into every room trying to prove yourself. You walk in knowing you are already chosen, you are already covered, you are already equipped, the verdict has already been rendered in heaven, and no earthly accusation can overturn it. You are free, you are protected, you are preserved, Not because you shouted loud enough, not because you swung hard enough, but because you stood still long enough to see what only God could do. You will not always see the way forward, but that does not mean you are lost. Sometimes God will close every door you thought you needed so that you can see the one door He alone can open. Sometimes He will allow the storm to rise just so He can show you He's the master over it. Sometimes He will let the fire rage around you, not to burn you, but to burn off what can't go with you to the next level, and through it all His hand never leaves you, His voice never abandons you, His promise never fails. You may not understand it in the moment, but later you will look back and see that every time you let go of the wheel, God took you places you never could have driven to on your own. Every time you stepped aside, God stepped in. And every time you stopped fighting in the flesh, He started fighting in the spirit. So take your hands off of what you've been trying to fix. Put the sword down, cancel the debate, stop crafting the response. Stop chasing the vindication. You are not your own defender, God is. And when He fights for you, He fights to win. When He steps in, He settles it completely. No residue, no question, no confusion, just victory. Stand firm, stand still, and trust. Let God fight for you. There is a power in ignoring what was sent to distract you, a strength not in how loudly you fight, but in how deeply you focus. Sometimes the greatest battle isn't against something that strikes you head on. Sometimes it's against something that whispers in the background, something that hisses your name not to destroy you, but to divert you. And if you're not wise, you'll fall, not because you were defeated, but because you were detoured. You must understand, not every fire requires your water. Not every voice deserves your response. Not every provocation is worth your energy. You were not called to chase every shadow that moves across your path. You were called to carry light, and light doesn't chase shadows. It reveals purpose. It exposes truth. It advances forward without hesitation, without negotiation, and without distraction. There are people, problems, and patterns that only exist to consume your attention. That's their entire purpose. They feed off of reaction. They live off of your focus. They grow stronger the more you notice them, not because they are powerful, but because they are persistent. They don't need to beat you. They just need to break your gaze, and the moment you look down from what matters to acknowledge what doesn't, the momentum begins to shift. You may not even realize it. You may think you're just addressing something. You may think you're simply making it clear, or defending your name. But while you're doing that, something sacred is slipping through your fingers. Time, peace, purpose, momentum. Every time you stop to justify yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you lose ground. Every time you trade silence for a scuffle that doesn't feed your future, you pay with progress. There's something holy about staying focused. There's something spiritual about not reacting. It's not cowardice. It's clarity. It's not weakness. It's wisdom. You don't build anything great by stopping to swat every fly. You don't move into destiny by obsessing over distractions. The enemy doesn't need to defeat you with force if he can deplete you with foolishness. He'll surround you with noise so you can't hear your calling. He'll stir up drama so you don't walk in dominion. He'll plant chaos at your feet so you stop climbing. But this is the season where your maturity has to outgrow your need to respond, where your discernment must become louder than your desire to be noticed, where your peace becomes more precious than being proven right, because what you feed will flourish, but what you ignore will fade. There are battles you will win not with words but with silence. There are storms you'll conquer not by speaking to them, but by refusing to sail into them. Sometimes the victory is in your ability to disengage, to walk away, to keep your face set like flint and your eyes on the road. Because when you stop turning toward what doesn't matter, you start running toward what does. The enemy has a strategy. He studies you. He knows your triggers. He knows how to touch that old wound, how to echo that lie you used to believe. He knows who to send to push your buttons, just enough to make you look, just enough to make you pause, just enough to make you turn your head from where God is trying to take you. He doesn't need to overpower you. He just needs to distract you long enough that you forget you're already victorious. Every glance backward delays your future. Every unnecessary conflict steals from the assignment that's waiting on you. Your oil is too valuable to be spilled in petty places. Your strength is too rare to be wasted on foolish fights. You weren't born to clap back. You were born to break through. You weren't anointed to argue. You were anointed to build. The higher you go, the less you respond. The greater the calling, the quieter the spirit. Let the enemy scream. Let him throw everything he's got. Let him hurl accusations, stir confusion, provoke reactions. You keep building, you keep praying, you keep writing, leading, dreaming, serving, becoming. Do not descend into the pit of pointless war when the throne of purpose is calling your name. Think about Nehemiah. He was building something, brick by brick, wall by wall. And when they came to distract him, to taunt him, to call him down from the work, he didn't answer with arguments. He answered with focus. He didn't climb down to prove a point. He stood firm to fulfill the vision. He said, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. That's the spirit of someone who understands what's at stake. That's the heart of someone who values purpose over pettiness. You've got to get to a place in your spirit where peace is non-negotiable, where your time is sacred, where your energy is reserved for the things that actually build you. Don't let someone else's chaos become your assignment. Don't let their insecurity become your conversation. Don't let their noise drown out the still small voice guiding you forward. The enemy loses power every time you stop paying attention to him. He loses influence every time you stop giving him the stage. He starts shrinking when you stop feeding him your fear, your outrage, your response. You don't overcome by engaging every distraction. You overcome by advancing in silence. You'll know you're growing when you stop needing closure from conversations you never needed to be part of. You'll know you're maturing when you don't have to clap back to know you've already won. You'll know you're walking in divine authority when what once disturbed you now passes beneath your feet like dust. You weren't designed to run around putting out fires that God never called you to extinguish. You were called to walk in the cool of the day with the Creator, unbothered by the brush fires of small minds. You were called to steward vision, not chase validation. You were called to shift atmospheres, not settle arguments. You were called to elevate, not retaliate. So let them talk, let them poke, let them try. But don't let them pull you out of posture. Don't let them drain your spirit. Don't let them rob your attention from the divine thing God is trying to do in you, through you, and around you. Focus is a weapon. Stillness is a strategy, and silence is sometimes the greatest shout of all. You don't have to prove you're called. Just keep walking in it. You don't have to argue that you're chosen. Just keep showing up. The fruit will speak, the favor will speak, the results will speak. Stay in position, stay in peace, stay on mission, because what's ahead of you is so much greater than what's trying to distract you. There is something powerful about knowing who you are, so powerful, in fact, that the enemy will do everything he can to provoke you into forgetting it. You don't have to be assaulted to be attacked. You don't have to be bruised to be broken. All the adversary needs is your attention, and if he can get you to step down from your divine position just to respond to something beneath your purpose, he doesn't have to defeat you. You'll have done it yourself by stepping into the wrong fight. What if I told you that every invitation to conflict is actually a test of your altitude? What if the voices that irritate you the most are not interruptions, but instruments pressing on you to reveal whether you're walking in power or reacting in pain? Every day life offers you a chance to descend, to argue, to engage in foolishness, to return to the level you were once trapped in. But destiny does not dwell in the dust. It calls you higher. You must make peace with this truth. Everything that challenges you is not worth your response. Just because it provokes you doesn't mean it deserves you. You were not built to waste time proving points in rooms God never sent you to. Some arguments are bait. Some battles are distractions dressed up as duty. And if you're not careful, you'll fight your way into fatigue, only to realize that all your strength was spent wrestling with shadows. You don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to address every critic. You don't have to chase down every whisper. You were never meant to meet every attack on the same level it was launched. Some things must be met, not with retaliation, but with ascension. There are places in God you cannot reach with a heavy heart and a busy mouth. There are elevations in grace that require the discipline of silence. Sometimes growth isn't proven in how loud you speak, it's in how still you stand. When you know who you are, you stop needing to echo the noise around you. You become deaf to the distractions that used to dominate your attention. You learn that dignity speaks louder than drama, that progress thunders louder than petty talk. Some people don't want resolution. They want your reaction. They aren't looking for truth. They're looking for trouble. Don't be the fool who shows up to every fight you're invited to. Some invitations must be declined with your absence. Let them wonder why you didn't answer. Let them wrestle with their own echo. Let them see that your silence isn't weakness. It's wisdom wrapped in restraint. You can't soar and settle at the same time. You cannot stretch toward purpose with one hand while holding offense with the other. Something has to be released, and here is the mystery. The higher you go, the less you can carry. Elevation demands release. You must release the need to be right, release the need to be heard, release the obsession with defending your name. Because the higher you climb, the thinner the air, and pride can't breathe in that atmosphere. That's why eagles don't fight snakes on the ground. They lift them into the sky. The ground is where the serpent slithers. The ground is where confusion reigns, but the sky, that's the eagle's realm. In the air, the snake loses its advantage. It can't breathe, it can't strike, it can't win, and that is what you must do with your spiritual opposition. Take it higher. Take it to the realm of prayer. Take it into the presence of God. Take it out of the emotional and into the eternal. You don't beat your battles by stooping to their level. You overcome them by changing the playing field altogether. Your peace is not preserved by confrontation. It is protected by elevation. You've cried too long over people who don't have the capacity to understand your calling. You've wasted too many words on ears that were never meant to carry your truth. This is the season where you must stop explaining and start ascending. Let them think what they will. Let them talk if they must. The path God has you on does not require their approval. It only requires your obedience. And the only thing that can for your destiny now is your willingness to go low when you are meant to rise. It's not that you can't respond. It's that you've grown beyond the need to. Maturity isn't about silence because you're scared. It's about silence because you're secure. You know that your name doesn't live in their mouths. It lives in the mouth of God. You know that your purpose is not hanging in their opinions. It is held in heaven. You've come too far to turn back now just to pick up a fight that won't feed you. Not every storm requires your voice. Some storms only stop when you stop stepping into them. Some cycles only continue because you keep circling back to what you should have flown over. There's a grace for escape, but it requires discipline. It requires the strength to keep your eyes on what's ahead instead of losing your vision over what's behind. And make no mistake, people will try to pull you back into arguments, back into places where your identity was defined by your wound, back into habits that drained you, but you are not who you were. You've got wings now, and wings were made for rising. The day you stop reacting to everything around you is the day you start becoming dangerous to the enemy. Because you can't be manipulated by what doesn't move you. You can't be baited by what doesn't benefit you. You're no longer walking into every trap laid for your emotions. You're flying over them with purpose. Let your posture speak for you. Let your endurance do the talking. Let your peace be the loudest sound in the room. You are no longer obligated to attend the meetings of mediocrity just because you received the invitation. The next level of your life requires selective energy. Not everything gets your attention. Not everyone gets access to your spirit. Not every issue earns your reaction. You are transitioning into a version of yourself that understands the value of peace over power struggles. You are stepping into a realm where your silence is not empty. It is full of direction, insight, and focus. The air is clearer up here. The noise is quieter. The vision is sharper, and the path is yours to walk unbothered, undistracted, and unmoved. This is where you thrive, this is where you stretch, this is where you soar, not in the dust of debate, not in the mire of conflict, but in the altitude of purpose, where clarity lives and chaos dies. So take your focus back, take your attention back, rise above the voices, above the confusion, above the invitations to become small again. You've got too much ahead to look down now, your future is forward. Your destiny is upward, and the call is higher, so here you are, at the edge of another decision. You've been tired, weary, confused, and tempted to keep swinging at the wind, fighting shadows and engaging in battles that are not yours to fight. But now you've heard the whisper, quiet, steady, unmistakable, let me fight for you. And maybe that's what you've needed all along, not another strategy, not another sword, not another sleepless night trying to control what's out of your reach. What you needed was the reminder that the God who calls you is also the God who covers you. He's not just watching your battle. He's standing in it, not on the sidelines, but in the fire, not observing from afar, but holding your hand through every storm. You've spent enough of your life trying to defend yourself, explain yourself, and rescue yourself, but self-rescue is exhausting. It drains your joy, clouds your mind, and robs you of the very peace you were created to walk in. It's time to release it, all of it, the worry, the fear, the need to control, the desire to retaliate, the urge to respond to what was never sent by God in the first place, because when you release it, heaven responds. When you step back, God steps forward. This isn't weakness, this is faith. This is the kind of courage that refuses to settle for temporary victory and demands eternal assurance. It's the kind of faith that says, God, I trust you even when I don't see it, even when I don't feel it, even when everything around me is trying to convince me that you've forgotten me. But you know better. You've seen too much to doubt him now. You've come too far to turn back. You've survived too many nights not to believe in the breaking of the day. The battle is not yours. The pressure is not yours. The outcome is not yours. It's his, and he has never lost, not once, not ever. His track record is flawless, and his love for you is relentless. If he didn't abandon you in the valley, he's not going to forget you on the mountaintop. If he stood with you in the drought, he will dance with you in the rain. Let this be the moment when something shifts in you, not around you, but within you. Let this be the moment you stop flinching at every sound of the enemy's voice and start tuning your ears to the still, small whisper of your Savior. He's not shouting because he doesn't need to. His presence alone is power. His silence is strategy, and his timing is always perfect. The God who fights for you doesn't fight like man does. He doesn't need fists. He doesn't need swords. He speaks, and the earth shakes. He breathes, and the enemy flees. He moves, and chains break, and when he says, "Peace, be still," there is not a force in hell that can resist him. So rest, beloved. Rest not because the war is over, but because you know who wins it. Rest not because you have all the answers, but because you trust the one who does. Rest not because life is easy, but because your faith is real. You don't have to see it to believe it. You just have to trust the one who promised it. And in that trust, you will find your victory. Let God fight for you. And watch him win every time.